Hi there, I'm James Latwell. I'm your guest host today here on Authors on the Air radio network, and it's my absolute pleasure to talk to one of my favorite people, and that's Matt Coyle. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks for having me. This is just a dry run, right? We're not really doing because this is your first one, as far as I know.
This is number two, but
Oh,
this
it's number
is
two. Okay, so it
yeah,
counts.
yeah, it counts.
Okay,
So
because I thought it was
you're
just one.
legit.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But for those of you who don't know Matt Coyle is the author of the best-selling Rick Cahill crime series. Matt knew he wanted to be a crime writer when his father gave him The Simple Art of Murder by Raymond Chandler when he was a young teen. His books have won the Anthony, the Seamus, the Lefty, the Authors on the Air Book Award, Ben Franklin Silver, Forward Review's Book of the Year Silver, and the San Diego Book Awards. Matt was named the Mystery Writer of the Year for 2021 by the San Diego Writers Festival. And Odyssey's End, that we'll talk about today, is the 10th book in the Rick Cahill series. Matt lives in San Diego, where he's writing something completely new. So, yeah, congrats on number 10. That's a huge milestone.
Yeah, thanks.
Here's the book. That's a huge milestone. I mean, when you started writing Rick Cahill, you know, 10 years ago, um, did you really know then where Rick was going to end up in Odyssey's End?
No, I actually started writing Rick 20 plus years ago. It took me 10 years to get published, and then it took me 2 years to get the second book out. So I'm not exactly at a decade, but we're calling it the decade of Rick. Um, no, I didn't. I when I first started writing, I just want to write a book because I told a bunch of people that's what I was going to do. I got a degree in English, which is good for working in the restaurant business or taking a real profession like lawyer, precursor for lawyer, something like that. But I told people I was going to be a writer, and I didn't write much. And so when I finally started writing, I was really happy because it was a goal I wanted to achieve. Um, and then once I started writing the first book, many revisions, I realized, oh, maybe you got a series here. I mean, maybe if anyone ever publishes it, which I was hopeful, but less and less hopeful as each rejection came in, or was ignored. The queries are often ignored. But no, I had no idea where which journey would be. I don't have a big character arc. I don't have a Bible, uh, which is stupid. But so I didn't anticipate giving him we'll probably get into a disease that will shorten his life, chronic traumatic encephalopathy. So no, I never envisioned it going where it did. I never envisioned it being as dark as it was, but I'm thankful that that's where it went. Um, but no, had no, not, I'd hoped to write 10 books, but I didn't know how I would get there.
Wow, that's great. Now, when you first started, you know, putting pen to paper with Rick Cahill, why did you take that PI kind of approach to him? What was interesting about that character, and did it kind of harken back to your Raymond Chandler roots?
Yeah, I did. I always wanted to write PI fiction ever since I was probably ever since I read Chandler, maybe even before, because I was drawn to that. Reading. I read Agatha Christie, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, amongst others, very young. But even then, I was probably watching PI shows on TV. So yeah, I always wanted to write PI. I know it's not. It's not. It's kind of. It was very popular 70 years ago, maybe 55 years ago. It's not the most widely read genre or subgenre, but um, I think that I think a mystery is a kind of just made up of one big. I think of it as crime, the crime genre, and then all these subgenres. So I think people traverse across one sub to the next. But I always wanted to write PI. I always felt it always was a voice in first person to me, and that kind of harkens to hard boiled PI. So yeah, I never wanted to write anything else actually.
Wow, that's interesting because I mean you've got a wide readership. I mean, people are attracted to Rick because of the character and then the crime fiction. But yeah, you've got a really wide breadth of readers that follow Rick. And you mentioned
Wide and
something,
thin.
yeah, you mentioned something, earlier is that you don't have a Bible for your series, and you're 10 books deep in it. I mean,
Yeah,
do you recall that much of it where you can just, sit down and it's just write it out, or what? Well, how do you keep it all straight?
absolutely not. I have to go back and I have to go back and look through earlier books. I know it's very stupid. I should have started a Bible after, let's say, I didn't know what I was doing after book two. That's about the time I told myself I should probably do this when I had time after each book. And I think I realized that I hadn't done it after maybe five, that I was never going to do it. But it saves you a lot of time taking that time to do it. But I go back and read, thinking like, where was the scar here? Where did he get stabbed? So I have to go back and read and try to remember what book that was and how many times was he stabbed. Um, so it's not the way to do it. If you write a series, keep a Bible. And if people don't know what a Bible is, you're basically keeping track of things about your characters, what they look like, new characters, maybe where their scars is, the map of their scars on their body, if you've been unfortunate like Rick. But yeah, I just go back and waste time and read through. But it's not that bad a thing, because when I'm reading through, I'm getting a better sense of where the character was at that certain part of his life. I guess I'll try to put a positive spin on it.
No, that makes sense. I mean, everybody's got their own way of doing it, but I mean, my hat's off to you because you've kept it. One thing about this your series, and as deep as it is, you keep it fresh. And I don't know how you could do that if you're just following a Bible and just having everything scripted out years ahead. You managed to keep it fresh. How do you do that?
Well, thanks for saying that. I just read a two-star review on Goodreads. I would beg to differ with you. Um, this person took this as being the last book, whether it is or not, and the critique was, finally, with about 1,000 exclamation points, and something like every book is the same with different titles. And I'm thinking, why didn't you stop after two? I mean, how many have you read if they're that bad?
And thank you
Um,
very much.
Yeah, I hope you bought them, and not for 99 cents when the sale's on. But everybody's got their opinion. But what I basically start with is a subplot in Rick's life. That's the going to be the major. Sorry, doors open, motorcycles. Major thrust of the emotional part of the book, and with what's going on in his life now, the CTE, maybe there is some similarity there, but there's different aspects of it. But so that's what I'm mainly concerned with, and each plot has been different. I might find something I find interesting in the news. This one, an Odyssey's End's got a little bit of cyber. How come I'm blanking on the like Bitcoin, whatever,
Hmm,
cryptocurrency.
crypto.
Uh,
Yeah.
and I've had the pharmaceutical industry and other ones, just things that I find interesting that I'll set the plot around. But it's always, how does Rick taking this particular case affect what's going on in his emotional life? So I start with character first. It's always character first. And there's been ups and downs. Rick, well, he's married now, and I never intended that to happen. So I've kind of looked at this person in a very unreal situation, tried to make his life as real as possible. In each book, I think of in terms of a 1 to 2 week period of this life, that if you looked at from 30,000 feet, you go, not that many bad things could happen to one person, have him still be around. But I try to make it realistic in the way he lives his life, and in this particular instance in each book. But I'm glad that it doesn't seem sane to you, with a lot of exclamation points.
Yeah, and more than 2 stars. Yeah, I mean, you just touched on it. I mean, Rick, over the course of his career, on the page, has been beat up, stabbed, run over. I mean, he's taken a toll, and you finally ended up with him in this last couple of books talking about CTE. And how did you come up with that idea to force on Rick, and how does that affect him? It's
Yeah.
especially in Odyssey's End.
Right. Going back to the idea of not keeping a Bible, but having his character arc in the beginning. Of course, I never would have given him this disease, but I did have one. I had a couple rules. One I broke, thank God, which was you never have a partner or a sidekick, and he has one now, Moira McFarlane. It's just rounded out the series, made it so much better. But the other one was every physical and emotional scar had to have resonance. It had to have meaning. And so I started to think around at the end of probably book 8, 9, 7, that boy, this guy's had a lot of physical abuse, and he's had multiple concussions. He boxed Golden Gloves as a kid. He played football from Pop Warner to 2 years in college football. I thought, well, that's a lot of head trauma, and
Mhm.
how could he? And even on the page, there's been a lot of head trauma. And so I thought, in today's world, and I think this is true. I think a lot of people have CTE that don't even know about it. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy, a brain disease brought on by a lot of brain trauma. It doesn't have to just be a concussion, by the way. It can just be like these constant. Um, so I thought, well, shit, if you're going to really live by this rule that everything matters, every physical altercation, every emotional scar has resonance, then God, he's probably got CTE. And it worked really well for the book because it kind of brought in something. Um, he was going to be I think it was the end of a book. He discovers he's going to be, or we find out that he's going to be a
Yeah.
father. And it's, he's had a couple girlfriends. It's usually in the past. He was married. His wife died before the first book. Murdered. He was thought to be the guy who did it, but he hasn't had that many relationships. But he's had a few. He's had ups and downs in love life and all that. But now he's actually married and he's got a child. And I thought, wow, is this going to settle him down too much? It hasn't. Um,
No.
but I thought, well, it's not just him and Midnight, his loyal, wonderful black lab anymore. It's if he makes mistakes, there's more people involved. It's not just him. If he does something stupid, if he does something careless, physically, dangerously, there's people out there that really it really matters to. And I mean, it not just matters to, and there's more, of course. He's got a few friends, Turk Muldoon, but it matters to, and loved ones living a life, continuing with their lives. And so it really, even though I gave him this disease, and my publisher probably thought it was a dumb idea to give a fairly successful series main characters, kind of a ticking clock that's going to end at some point.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly. Yeah. That ticking clock. You really feel that in Odyssey's End because I mean he's facing you know a realistic deadline, and it kind of
yeah,
forces him into things that he might not normally have done.
yeah, he's facing a realistic deadline at the end of this book in more ways than one. Yeah, so the main thrust for him now in this book, as it opens, Odyssey's End, is he is estranged from his wife and child. He does get to see his child, Krista, but his wife does not want to get back together. She's moved 210 miles away in Santa Barbara. He's in San Diego. And his goal is to get back together. The clock is ticking. He's a private investigator. He takes cases that can sometimes be physical, but he's tried to scale back on that because it's a big rift between him and his wife, still wife. But he just wants to get back. He knows this. I want to live my life, the end of my life with family. And if that doesn't happen, if he can't get back together with his wife, he at least wants to have a safety net for his daughter when the world knocks her down, and it will, because he knows that better than anybody, and he won't be around probably when that happens to her. And so he wants to build at least somewhat of a financial safety net, or at least get it started. And someone knocks on his door and gives him that opportunity, but it's somebody's had a history with, who's a very nasty person, who saved Rick's life in one book. And earlier book, he tried to kill him. But he's got the financial wherewithal and offers a lot of money for Rick if he finds somebody. And he knows he can't trust this guy. He knows this is something his wife would not want him to do, but he's thinking about his daughter. He's thinking about that's his responsibility. His wife's his responsibility. Midnight's his responsibility, but his daughter's his utmost responsibility. And here it is. Here's the knock on the door that I can't walk away from. So he takes the case, and bad things ensue.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that you mentioned was his ties to his wife and his daughter, and the CTE is kind of pushing the wife kind of away from him,
Yeah.
cautiously, and that whole theme of family kind of comes through in Odyssey's End and its importance to him. How did you come up with that particular plot line?
Yeah, it just came out of the ether, it bubbled up. I didn't expect it. It started back when he realized he's going to be a father.
Yeah.
And I don't write themes, but sometimes they appear on their own. And I realized in the last three books, Last Redemption, Doom Legacy, and Odyssey's End, all upbeat titles, all upbeat books. Um, there is a theme of family, and I didn't intend that, but I realize I think all writers of fiction in their writing are trying to work something out, subconsciously or consciously. I do believe that, with all my heart. And I think that I'm not currently married, but I don't have any kids. I don't have a family, and I'm very old now. I'm not going to have a family of my own. So it's something that I think of all the disappointments in my life, it's not having children is the biggest one. Sometimes life doesn't work out that way. And there's been some major losses in my family's lives, and we lost a child at very yeah she was the first grandchild, and we lost her day before her 16th birthday. So I think all this feeling of this kind of angst for family has been something that's been in the background of all of our lives, and I think that's what's bubbled up in my books. They're I don't want people to think they're not fun, because they're fun, but there's some melancholy in them.
Hmm.
And I came to realize a few years ago at a writers conference, I think the melancholy was coming from what has happened in my extended family's life. And so there it is. So that thing I've been working on all these years, I finally recognized it. And I didn't recognize it until this book, but it came to the family idea. It came about, bubbled up through Last Redemption and Odyssey's End. And then, and it, I think it's made the writing better for him to have more than, on the table. I think if you're writing a thriller, I don't write thrillers. My publisher says I do, but I don't. But I think if you're writing something character driven, you're writing anything,
Hmm.
not even in the crime genre. I think there's got to be risk, especially if you're writing in first person. The the character has to risk something for the actions they take. And if he's a private investigator, there's got to be a risk to him personally to make it interesting. Of course, in real life, it doesn't happen very often, but there has to be something he's risking to take this particular case, and the actions he takes. And what is a bigger risk for a person than their family? So, um, it kind of out of the ether. I don't know where it comes from, but it kind of worked out.
Very good. Now, I when we were together at Book Passage recently, I asked you, is this going to be the last Rick Cahill book? I mean, your Goodreads reviewer would say, yeah, but you kind of left it open. I mean, it ends in a good place, but you kind of left it open like there could be another Rick Cahill. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't want to have any spoilers. It is called Odyssey's End,
Mhm.
but I've written in this character's world for 20 years. Like I said, over 20
Yeah,
years. I've
yeah.
written this guy in first person. Been in my head for 20 plus years. That's the longest successful relationship I've ever had. Um, and it's not even been that successful. So I can't imagine not writing in this world ever again. But I don't. It's not going to happen for at least a couple of years. If I do, then I thought, if it is the end, this would be a good place for it to end. And I wanted to give Rick the send off or the justice he deserved, that I thought this series deserved. And that was my biggest concern writing this book. Can it be up to the level that the other books have been? And um, will it, if it is the end, will it be satisfying for people? So that was a challenge.
Yeah, and I think you managed to land that pretty well, because I mean, if it is the end, it's a good ending. If it's not, I could see it setting up for something in the future. So, that was a good balance to make. So that's awesome. Now,
Thanks.
do you want to talk about what you're working on now? I think it was, if I remember, it was called Temecula Sky.
Well, that's if I get a publisher and they like the title. Sure, yeah. It's completely different. I'm currently not writing in first person. It is always a possibility that when I finish the first draft, I don't like it, I can go back and change because the main protagonist, there's two points of view. Actually, there's going to be three, I think. Maybe the bad person will have a point of view character, but be a little more distant than the other one. But it's pretty close third person. It's going to sound familiar to Rick fans in some ways, but it's different in others. A former cop who's had to leave the police department for something he did, and only one other person knows. His boss, his lieutenant. He was a homicide cop. Only his lieutenant. And he's the one who said, I can't. This can't stand. We have to either follow this through the proper steps, which would be bringing law enforcement, or you can't be a cop anymore. And so this is the backstory. He's quit his job. He's been a private investigator for about 3 years, I think, maybe 2.5 when the book starts. His father was a cop before him, and his father's got some serious health problems, and all the Medicare and his cop healthcare is not cutting. It's not enough. So this guy's name's Tim Concannon. He's got to help his father. His father doesn't want the help. He doesn't want anybody in his house because he's got to have full-time care, and his father doesn't want that. But anyway, so he's helping. He needs to make more money as a PI. He's not making it. And so the opportunity to work for a public defender's office temporarily comes up, and it's going to be better money than he's making now. And it's something he needs to do. Plus he's divorced and he's paying what they used to call alimony. I don't know what they call it anymore. So he really is not making ends meet. And so he can't turn down this opportunity. It's up in Temecula. He lives in San Diego. And so, but he's a true believer of on the other side of the thin blue line. And he's going into the opposite team. He's going, and his father cannot abide it that he would do that. His father was a cop, and he's working with a female public defender, the other point of view person, and she is a true believer on the other side. So there's that clash, and then there's he's got to look at himself. Can I do this? And he's involved in a murder case. And he's thinking, can I really, my kind of life's ambition or whatever drive has been to put bad people away. And am I really going to use my formidable skills? He was a good homicide cop to try to get somebody off who he thinks is guilty. And so he's battling that. There's also, the two of them they feel a connection. There's a physical romance connection. So there's that. And then there's also the thing in his past that's looming out there that will definitely come back. It's kind of that was not a log line. That was not an elevator pitch, but we're still working on that.
It depends how long the elevator ride was, but
yeah,
no, I look forward to it. It sounds intriguing. I hope it comes through. So I'd like to end on just 3 quick hits, just kind of little insights into your character, into Rick Cahill. So what's Rick's biggest fear?
Failure, but it's failing his family. It's failing now. It's failing his daughter, but it's always been failure.
Okay. What's Rick's favorite music?
This is country.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Actually, there was Dark Fisher's book 3. He actually helps a wannabe country music singer.
Very cool. And lastly, what do you think Rick's guilty pleasure would be?
I will say though that Rick had a big R&B. His father before him listened to R&B when he was younger, so he's got the background R&B too, which I think country and R&B kind of overlap. People would not understand that, but it's all about storytelling. His biggest what was it?
Guilty pleasure.
Guilty pleasure. It's like milkshakes or chocolate chip cookies. Yeah, chocolate chip cookies was in Night Tremors. Yeah, he ended up getting the case, taking the case. There's a woman plied him with about 15 chocolate chip cookies, or maybe it's about 10 to 15. And I write in first person for Rick, and so as he's taking each one, he's thinking, am I supposed to eat them all? Am I being rude by continuing to eat these? Now I have to take the case. So yeah, chocolate chip cookies. So sweets.
Love it. Well, Matt, it's been a blast to kind of catch up with you again. It's always good to see you.
Thanks.
Yeah, where can folks find you, connect with you if they haven't done so already?
I respond to 2-star reviews on Goodreads. And no, MattCoyleBooks.com. I'm on Facebook, Matt Coyle. I know you can find me. And I'm on. I sort of am on Instagram, where I can occasionally like stuff. But basically, Facebook is where you can find me, or MattCoyleBooks.com.
Sounds good. Matt, thanks again, and it's been a blast to talk to you.
Thanks for having me. Congrats on the new gig.
Hey, thank you. I'm having fun with it so far.
Yeah. Hope it pays
Pam
well.
hasn't told me.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks.